Hey there, folks. So, last episode we had gone through and set up, tested, and finished off our initial work for our JSON object parser. I wanted to, I know I said next episode we were probably going to be looking at XML or the creature factory. However, I did want to pivot back for a moment back to our message manager. And the reason being is I wanted to add in the blueprint function library utility to actually add this in and expose our message manager to blueprints. And also in the process, help deal with, as I had mentioned in the episode where we set that up, the potential for having multiple instances of that in the scene, which is what we've got right here. So what we're going to do though, we're going to start in our TF utilities file, or TF utils, in the header in this case. And we're just going to add in a pretty basic function here. It's going to be class ATF message manager pointer get message manager. And this needs to take an input. It's going to be a uObject pointer caller. And the reason being is we are going to be making use of a Kismet get all actors of class function, and that needs a get world, which we need to have for, and we need to do that based on the uObject, in this case caller. And what are you complaining about there? Nothing. All right, so we are going to create the definition for that. Now, before we get started, there is a couple of includes we need in here. So, I already added these in. So the two includes we need are Kismet gameplay statics and base class TF message manager. I don't know why I'd added these in. I'd been going through making notes, and I'm guessing I had got sidetracked and typed that up in the Visual Studio instead of in the actual notepad I've got open. But anyway, so in here, in our new function we just created, first thing we're going to want to do is make sure caller is valid, because if it's not, our get world function is going to fail, and well, really, if the caller isn't valid, there's no point in us doing anything here. So if not is valid caller, return null pointer. And I'm just going to put it, actually, I'm not going to even put it to do logger get instance add message error level el error. TF utils get message manager called that function, can't spell, called with invalid caller. All right, so now that we've got that, the next thing we're going to need is T array, and these are going to be A actors, A actor pointers to be precise, and we're just going to call this managers. Now, U gameplay statics get all actors of class, and this is where you can see the first input is the world context object, and that's where we need this caller. So it's caller get world. Then it's ATF message manager static class. And finally, we want to add in or pass in managers. Now, this is where I mentioned we're also going to be handling the situation of where there's more than one message manager in the scene and some potential problems that may come about from that. So with that, what we're going to do here is if managers dot num is greater than 1, we're going to do a for loop now for int I equals 1. Now you have to remember the index of the managers array starts at 0. We want to skip that 0, so that's why we're starting this at 1. I less than managers dot num I plus plus. So this is just your basic for loop here, and it's going to be managers at index of I and then we're just going to call destroy. Now what this is going to do is the very first time this get message manager function is called, we're going to go through and change up some of our other instances where we're storing pointers for this to use this function. But the very first time this function, basically we're going to go through and go, okay, how many message managers is there? If there is more than one, we're going to get rid of everything that came back in this call that isn't the very first one, which should then subsequently mean there is only one remaining in the scene. And after that, the next, like the second and subsequent calls to this get function, or get message manager function, this should only ever return one. There should never be more than one, but in the event there is, well, we've got a bit of a problem because we now have a potential of this get all actors of class returning them in a different order. That should never happen though. But now that we've got that, it's pretty simple to finish this function off. It's just going to be return cast to ATF message manager, managers at index 0. And that's this function here. Now, as I mentioned, we want to expose this to blueprints. So we're going to add that into our blueprint function library. And you can see I've already got that open. I was going through and making notes on what we needed to add. So in our header, we need to add in, include, and actually I'm going to fix one of my previous things. Logger should always be at the bottom in my opinion. Include base class TF message manager. I'm going to copy this U function just for ease of not having to type this all out. I'm going to put it in the singleton subcategory. Returns the currently active message manager. Okay, now we want static ATF message manager pointer get. Now we need a slightly different name just so there's no conflict at a code level. It's going to be get active message manager, and then U object pointer caller. Now hopefully IntelliSense allows us to create the definition for that. All right. Create the definition. Okay, so in here, this one's actually pretty simple because in the header, you can see we already have TF utilities. So in here, all we need to do is return get message manager and just pass through that caller. So now that we've got that in place, we're going to run a build. And during this build, I'll talk through a couple things, but we're not actually going to hop into the editor. I just want to make sure the code that we've just put together is correct. But so a couple of things to run through quick. First of all, you may notice there's a slight change in the audio. I've changed from using a boom mic to a headset, just because the headset allows me to keep the mic in a constant position. I'm somewhat of a moving person as I work. I have a 3-monitor setup, looking around, moving my head constantly. Couldn't get a mic in a consistent place. So hopefully this headset mic works and sound quality improves going forward. But anyway, so that build succeeded. You can see we have no errors. Now we do have as I mentioned, the need to go through and find and replace all of our calls to get the message manager to this new function. We've got TF utils there. So, okay. So instead of this, we are going to remove this and we're just going to get message manager and then this. Okay, and the same thing here. Get message manager and this. Stat line component. This one might prove an issue. We're going to pass through T owner in this case, because it's an actor component, not an actor. So all right. Now, just quickly, we're going to run another build, but there is one other thing I wanted to talk about. That first build, finish quickly. So you do have a couple of other ways you could go about this. You could add this on to your game instance. If you're thinking you are only going to have one message manager that's perpetual from the start of the game startup, and by that I mean like not loading into a level, I mean like running the game to all the way through to when the game itself closes down. If you're only ever going to have that one instance, then great, you can put this as a variable on your game instance and you can use that as a single point of storage. The reason why I'm not doing that, and just to explain that, actually it's where I was going through all of this, is I'm not thinking there is going to be a single message manager that is present from game start to game end. The message manager itself is something I want to have on or present in each map itself, like playable level. So like our dev map, the third person map, things like that. Each one of those would have their own independent one. And the reason being for that is, again, as I've mentioned, modding. I want to provide the ability to override things. Like I want somebody to be able to go and create their own version of the message manager. And let me just pull that up, where they say on year change, they want to add in some additional functionality in here. Like they want to trigger fireworks or things like that, and they want to have it done. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. If you're doing that, you'd have something subscribed to this, but they want to add in their own additional logic like right here. So having a message manager that is persistent from game start to game end, I should say application startup to application shutdown, I'll rephrase it to that, makes it next to impossible for anyone to be able to override that, because they would have to go through, destroy the other actor, and hopefully that works, things like that. Whereas going through and putting one per map and allowing individuals to override if need be, then it helps in that regard. So that's my whole reason for this, and I realize I never actually explained that prior to now. But so what we're going to do here, though, I'm going to actually launch into the editor, and we're going to test this out just to make sure that this is actually going to do what we want it to do, because it could fail miserably. The code did compile, great, but our blueprint's going to work. So I'm going to pause the video and I will be back as soon as we are in the editor. All right, so we are back in the editor now. With that, like I was saying, we're just going to go through and quickly test to make sure this works. So content browser, I'm just opening up our dev chrono manager here because this is the one that we have active in our third person blueprint, third person map, I should say. Stick this back over the other side. And for this, quite simply, so get active message manager. And you can see with this, we have our caller, our return value, and that's it. It's not functions because it's a blueprint pure. Caller, we're just going to pass in a reference to self because it's going to reference the chrono manager that is in the scene. And I'm just going to promote this to a variable, and we're just going to call that temp message manager. The whole purpose of this is just to go through and actually save this so this logic gets triggered. So I'm going to throw a breakpoint here. Apparently I screenshotted something. I must hit the wrong button. And then I'm going to quickly hop over to Visual Studio. Throw a couple breakpoints in here. So I'm going to put breakpoint there, and then in TF Utils I'm going to put a breakpoint here. So Now, because this is off begin play, as soon as we launch play in editor, it should hop over to this code. So let's go through. And actually, I've just done this off screen, but I have variable is public and editable in each instance of the blueprint. I just set that. The reason being for that is we can then take a look at it in the editor. Let's go chrono. At least I think we should. And that is temp. No. What did I miss on here? Compile and save that. There it is. That's why I needed to expose on spawn. All right, so click play. So in here you can see we are get message manager. It's actually the first one that was hit. Surprised that breakpoint got hit first, but you can see caller is our BP oh, we've got a regrow actor in here. That's why. So caller is valid. Okay, so we didn't hit this exception case. Managers is containing 1. If managers.num is greater than 1, I'm not going to call anything, return message manager 0. Now we're going to, that's our chrono manager. Managers, you can again see it's 1. And just for showing here, you can see we hit this breakpoint. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this and go through and where did I put that message manager? Drop in a second instance of these, so I'm going to say message. You can see we have 2 of those now. So I'm going to go back to our chrono manager though, so we can figure this out. And I realized I just removed that breakpoint I wanted, so we're going to throw that breakpoint back in. We're going to hit play. So caller again, or regrow test. Managers, you can see num is 2. Destroy the first one. Sorry, destroy the second one, technically return the first one. And get rid of that one. You can see in here, now our caller is our chrono manager. Managers is now 1. So that second instance was destroyed. So now if we continue again, what's the caller this time? Do we have 2 chrono managers? No. But you can see it's now set in there. And if we go message, we got rid of that second instance. So see, our time is updating. Our wolf is chasing us and probably going to do some damage. Yeah, and things are lagging out because I'm running through Visual Studio. So all right, but that's pretty much what I wanted to cover here. I'm going to drop out of this. We're dead. You haven't added that in yet. But so that's covered the basics of what I wanted to handle with the message manager there. I'm just going to save everything, close out of the editor quick. And because of that, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to get rid of this. We don't need that. That's going to add in additional logging and additional processing power that we don't need to have that get all actors of this class if there's more than one delete log an error. We actually have that handled by this function here, and we're not worried about that. So at this point, though, it is a bit of a shorter episode, but I want to try and keep these to sort of like a single topic. I don't want to bounce over to the next process, which is, I'm not even sure what I'm going to be doing next, but I think it's going to be working towards the creature factory. But with that, though, I'm going to end this episode here. So as always, thanks for watching, folks. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, suggestions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Or you can hop over onto the Discord. Things are somewhat active over there, and I do try to respond to comments and questions as quickly as I can. But as always, folks, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.